Hello, greetings all. This is Lincoln Lawyer. I am here breaking quarantine in sunny Isles on this sunny, not so sunny, cloudy day. I think we're about to have a thunderstorm. Enjoying my little yogurt drink, doing a little shopping for some Russian cuisine. So, today I want to do a car vlog. I'm going to talk about quarantine law. All right, brief video, quarantine law. I'm going to answer the question whether Trump, the feds, can order a nationwide shutdown. There's a big debate on this. Stupid debate, actually. So let's discuss quarantine a little bit. Quarantine is as old as humanity. All right, very simple. So basically, even in the Bible, quarantine is described. A priest can isolate the sick if they exhibit signs of illness to protect other people. So people recognize this kind of thing, protecting others very early on. Then actually the word quarantine comes from quarantina. All right, it's a Venetian word. It means 40 days, and that is the period of time that persons were isolated on an island when they arrived by ship into Europe during the bubonic plague, the Black Death. Okay, so they figured out that it takes about 37 days to exhibit signs of illness and die from the Black Death. And, they rounded up to 40. If you make it 40 days, good job. Come on in. You're good to go. Okay, so in the West, quarantine took the form mostly in New York. Okay, so it occurred, basically it started around 1663. There was a quarantine for smallpox. Then around less than 200 years later, it was cholera again in New York. Another quarantine. Then 1918, 30,000 people died again in New York. Again, there was a quarantine. So for the Spanish flu, influenza, I think there's like 500,000 people died. 600,000 died in total. There are other states that also did quarantine, but mainly New York. So basically, this tells me that New York is a freaking cesspool. It's a pit of disease. It's a unnatural way to live, like rats on top of one another. Makes no sense to me. Okay, so I mean, just living in such close proximity, breathing on each other all day in the subway and elevators. It's disgusting. It's so conducive to the spread of various diseases like wildfire. I mean, to me, it makes no sense. Some people love New York, wouldn't live anywhere else. Okay, fine, whatever floats your boat. For me, it's disgusting. I need my personal space. I'm just saying, okay? So anyway, New York, I'm not into it. All right, so those were all actions by the states. Okay, so quarantine is a power shared between the states and the federal government. So the federal government asserted its power to quarantine in 1944. It derived that power from the General Welfare Clause and the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution. In 1944, they passed the Public Health Service Act. Okay, and this allowed the government to quarantine, to detain, examine, and apprehend, to quarantine infected persons who were peculiarly likely to travel interstate commerce and infect people across state lines. So the president has the power to designate which disease is quarantinable by the feds through executive order. Okay, and so since then it's been rarely used. Okay, so a couple things. Infected persons. They can only detain infected persons. They can't detain healthy people. Okay, you have to be infected with something. So, and then, even if you're infected, you have to be likely to travel across state lines, and you have to be likely to infect other people across state lines. So if you're infected and you travel across state lines, but you travel to a private isolation quarantine, they can't detain you, okay? So that's a state thing. If you're likely to infect other people, they can detain you, okay? They also control the travel of foreigners into the U.S. They can detain them. That is the federal power, okay? Feds have limited powers, okay? They can only exercise the powers granted to them by the Constitution. Anything not granted to the federal government is reserved to the states. Government of limited powers. Okay, so there has to be a nexus with interstate travel, interstate commerce, or foreign travel. That's the only areas they have power over. In-state, they do not have authority. So that answers the question. No, the federal government cannot order a nationwide national quarantine. They cannot reach into each state and tell healthy people who are not likely to travel to stay home, and you're isolated. There's a national stay-at-home order. Period. Okay, never been tested in Supreme Court because it's so rarely used. But it's pretty clear from the language of the statute that the authority of the federal government is quite limited in this respect. Okay, so Trump can order a quarantine of an area. They can restrict interstate travel, which they were considering doing with the Northeast, quarantining that whole area with New York and Connecticut, etc., where most of the infections were in, which they should have done, in my opinion. Okay, very simple. So many people that left that area and infected people across the country, especially south in Florida. It's ridiculous. They should have quarantined New York and right away, very quickly, limit the spread of the disease. So anyway, cannot order a nationwide lockdown, isolation, quarantine, shutdown. Okay, very simple. Can restrict interstate travel. Okay, so that should answer that question. Thank you for watching. I hope you're staying safe. This shit's gonna be over soon. I'm so fucking sick of it. Hope you're staying healthy, entertained, whatever. Do what you gotta do. Be cool. See you next time.